Lawfare. Yeah, lawfare. So what is that? Well, who better to ask than Brooke Goldstein, a human rights attorney, author, award-winning filmmaker. She serves as director of the Lawfare Project, a non-profit organization dedicated to raising awareness about the abuse of Western legal systems and human rights law. Welcome to you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, the book, this seminal book that everybody has to go and buy a copy of right now, and the title by you, it's called Lawfare, and there's a subtitle.
Right. It's called Lawfare, The War Against Free Speech. It's a First Amendment guide for reporting in an age of Islamist lawfare.
Interesting. Now, we don't have the amendments, obviously, that you have in the United States, but we've had massive attacks on freedom of speech, and they've come principally from two areas, from the Islamic community and the gay community, but in particular the Islamic community has tried through human rights commissions to silence person after person in Canada. The same in the United States, even with your devotion to freedom?
Absolutely. Even though we have the First Amendment, that has not stopped people from filing frivolous and malicious lawsuits that are basically designed to chill public dialogue about issues of national security, such as militant Islam, terrorism, and their sources of financing. And what's particularly important to notice is how most all of these lawsuits are either dropped before discovery or they're thrown out of court because they lack any evidence. And it shows the basic intent of the people bringing the lawsuit is not to pursue justice, but to use the legal system to intimidate somebody.
Yeah. People need to know this, because there's no reason why people will be fully aware of it. They have real things to do in life. They don't have to worry about all this. But what tends to happen is if someone goes to, say, a TV station, a radio station, newspaper, and says, we're suing this person for what they said. Now, it may well be, if it gets to court, no judge will take this seriously. It'll be thrown out. But rather than pay all of that money, once you go through discovery and get to court, it will cost a huge amount of money. A TV station or a radio station might say, oh, we'll pay them $20,000, $30,000, and of course, never use the journalist again. So it silences people, and it also rewards those who bring these quite extreme and absurd legal cases.
Exactly. And even if you're not sued, what we've been seeing now is something called a chilling effect on free speech. People are afraid of being sued. So instead of publishing that article about, XYZ Islamist organization, that's really a front for terror financing, or instead of publishing, the cartoons of Muhammad, for example, you will choose not to do that because you don't want to be targeted not just by a lawsuit, but also by violence. Many people who are brave enough to speak critically about Islamist terrorism, to speak critically about some theocratic governments, have been targeted with violence as well. Look at Ayaan Hirsi Ali, look at Wafa Sultan, look at Irshad Manji for her wonderful book. They are all targeted with threats.
Yeah, I mean, it's a multi-headed monster, I suppose. Certainly violence. And what I've always found to be extremely irritating is when Muslim leaders say, we have not used violence in this case. No, you haven't. What you have done is to use, as you say, the legal system. I think what is shocking for many Canadians, though, is that this is happening in the States. We assumed it happens here, but not in the United States, because it is within your Constitution. You are centered around this notion of freedom. Has it got any worse, if you forgive me asking, under this presidency, under this administration?
Well, over the past 10 years, we've seen a very steady increase in the filing of, like I said, frivolous lawsuits that are designed to intimidate people so that they won't be talking about real and imminent threats to our civilization, such as militant Islam. And in fact, where this has stemmed from is none other than the United Nations. Yeah. We have seen over the past 11 years the UN Human Rights Council pass resolution after resolution attempting to outlaw the blasphemy of Islam as a crime against humanity. Now, when I was in law school, I learned that the cornerstone of liberal democracy is the right to speak freely and critically about religion and government. We don't have blasphemy laws anymore in the West, for good reason. But the Organization of the Islamic Cooperation has passed 11 resolutions that attempt to make it a crime under international law to speak critically about religion. Yes.
Now, this is extremely important, because people must not be fooled. And even useful idiots like Tony Blair have sometimes gone along with this. When you pass a law saying you must not make fun of religion or insult religion, I'm religious. I don't like my faith being insulted, but I'm a big boy. I can take it. They don't really mean you can't make nasty comments about Baha'i, Jews or Catholics. What they mean specifically is you mustn't say anything negative about Islam.
Right, and what are the chances that any of those laws are going to be used against self-described Islamist terrorist groups like the Islamic Jihad, for example, that uses the word Islam in its own name? But the problem with laws that outlaw any type of offensive speech about religion is that there is a slippery slope. When you go out in the public, how are you supposed to know what is legal to say, what's illegal to say, unless a third party subjectively finds it offensive? And we can't be throwing people in jail because some people have hurt feelings.
So some of the groups who are most vehement in proposing these anti-blasphemy laws are those who routinely depict Jews and Christians in the most repugnant manner.
Look at what constitutes the Organization of the Islamic Cooperation. It is a 57-member voting bloc at the United Nations. It has hijacked the General Assembly. It has hijacked the Human Rights Council. It is made up of totalitarian, theocratic, fascist regimes. But I mean, I believe you also had Hillel Neuer on this, who runs an amazing group, UN Watch. Look at how the United Nations Human Rights Council is being manipulated. Do you know that Pakistan and Saudi Arabia were appointed to be on the Commission on the Status of Women? How can we, how can we respect anything that's emanating out of this institution that has no respect for the rule of law itself?
Now, lawyers, not always my favorite people, I have to confess, but lawyers in the United States, are they aware of this? Are they fighting back or just going along with the fashion?
Well, no, we are organizing ourselves. We are absolutely fighting back. We are fighting to defend the inalienable human right to free speech. I run a group called the Lawfare Project. It's a non-for-profit organization that operates here in New York City. And we have organized a group of attorneys that are ready and willing to spend their pro bono hours or to work reduced rate and to give financial support to anybody who's sued for exercising their First Amendment or their free speech rights about these issues. So absolutely, we must go on the offense.
Yeah, you must. And intimidation, is that frequent? And are you big and brave enough, I don't mean you, but your colleagues, to stand up to it?
Yes, but intimidation isn't just coming from, the so-called radical organizations. We are seeing right now a divide in our society. There is a group of people who will call anybody who raises awareness about Islamist terrorism an Islamophobe. A great example.
Forgive me, I have to interrupt you, but believe me, I mean, I could write you a book about that as well. Look, we'll have you back on the show. That was terrific. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.